Welcome to the Law Offices of Chris M. Ingram podcast. Today we are covering part 4 of our 4-part series called Strategies for Success. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge attorney Chris Ingram and his dedicated legal team. They did a great job researching and preparing this material for us. We are thrilled to be able to present this topic for you today. So this deep dive, it's really about bringing everything together. We've, spent the last few parts laying out the strategies for graduate professionals aiming for a U.S. career. A lot of focus on the H-1B visa.
A huge focus, yes. It's
Yeah.
central for so many.
Exactly. And now, in this final part, we're pulling from all that great research the legal team did. We're finalizing those H-1B strategies, the really crucial ones. But we're also asking that big question, what if the H-1B doesn't pan out?
Which, let's be honest, is a reality for many people, given the lottery system.
Right. So that leads us to introducing a really important alternative pathway, the E-2 Treaty Investor Visa. So our goal today is, to take the legal team's insights, look at some real stories they highlighted, and really give you the practical tools and knowledge you need.
Yeah, think of it like this. We've looked at the map, right? Now we're plotting the actual route, maybe figuring out some detours or even, a completely different road if the main one's blocked.
Good analogy. We talked about building your profile, networking. That was like getting your car ready.
Exactly. And now it's about the driving tactics and knowing where else you might go. It's about action and, importantly, having a plan B.
Okay, perfect. And just to quickly recap from the legal team's material for part 3, we really established why the H-1B is often seen as like the gold standard for grads, especially in STEM.
Definitely. It ties directly into those high-demand careers, and crucially, it has that potential pathway to permanent residency, the green card, down the road.
Right. And we looked at strategies like building that really competitive profile and, how vital networking is, making connections, getting referrals.
We had those examples, remember?
Yeah.
Carlos, who used referrals effectively.
Well, yeah, that showed the power of who you know.
And Elena, who boosted her profile with specific certifications. She didn't just rely on her degree, she showed extra specialized skills, real practical stuff that worked.
Okay, so foundation laid. Let's dive into the final H-1B strategies from the legal team's research. These are the real tactical moves, especially for dealing with the unique H-1B system.
Okay, step 6. This one is absolutely critical if you're targeting the H-1B. Optimizing specifically for the H-1B lottery.
Ah, the lottery. Yeah, that's the bit that feels like pure luck, doesn't it? It can be pretty stressful.
It definitely involves chance, no doubt.
Sure.
But the legal team's analysis really stresses that you can use strategies to, nudge the odds a bit more in your favor. And the first big one they point out is timing.
Timing. Okay, how so?
To even be in the H-1B lottery, which USCIS runs in March, you absolutely need that job offer from a sponsoring employer secured well beforehand. Ideally, the legal team says, by January.
January. Wow, that's early. Why so early?
Because the employer needs time. They need time to gather everything, get their ducks in a row, and submit your electronic registration during that specific window, which is usually just the first couple of weeks in March. If you get an offer in, say, late February, it's probably too late for them to register you for that year's lottery. You miss the boat for that fiscal year under the standard cap.
So, yeah, you can't just graduate and then start looking casually. You need to be deep in the job hunt months before March.
Absolutely. Proactive is the name of the game. And connected to that, the legal team's material highlights a huge advantage for many graduate professionals, the advanced degree exemption.
Right, the master's cap, some people call it, if you have a U.S. master's or Ph.D.
Exactly. From a qualifying U.S. institution. This gives you a significant leg up in the lottery odds.
How does that actually work, though, like mechanically in the lottery process?
Okay, it gets a bit technical, but it's really important. USCIS runs the lottery in 2 stages, basically. First, they select registrations from the entire pool, one bachelor's, master's, PhD, foreign degrees, doesn't matter. If your registration isn't picked in that first round,
Okay.
and you hold that qualifying U.S. master's or higher degree, your registration gets a second chance. It goes into a second pool, which is only for those advanced degree holders who weren't selected in the first round.
Whoa, okay. So you basically get considered twice if you have the U.S. advanced degree.
That's the effect, yes. It's not 2 separate entries you make, but the process gives you 2 distinct opportunities for selection. Statistically, this significantly boosts your chances compared to someone only eligible for that first round. It's a major reason why getting a U.S. grad degree can be so strategic for H-1B hopefuls.
That is a huge advantage. Wow. Okay, now, the legal team also talks about getting multiple job offers. How does that help in a lottery? Seems
Yeah.
kind of weird.
Yeah, it sounds a bit odd at first, but it hinges on how the registration works. The H-1B electronic registration is tied to the employer, not just to you, the candidate.
Ah, okay.
So each company that gives you a genuine job offer and agrees to sponsor you can submit one registration for you in March. So if you're lucky enough to get solid offers from, say, Company A and Company B,
Both can register me.
yes, Company A registers you, Company B also registers you. It's totally legitimate.
I see. So it's not me getting multiple entries, but because multiple companies want to hire me, they each put my name in.
You got it. And if either Company A's registration or Company B's is selected, then you proceed with the H-1B petition with whichever company got picked. The legal team's research confirms this is a valid strategy that definitely improves your statistical odds of getting selected.
And they used Priya's example to show this in action, right?
Right. Priya's story, as the legal team laid it out, shows her deliberately securing two separate job offers for the FY 2026 lottery. Because both companies were willing sponsors, both registered her. This specific move measurably increased her chances compared to just having one registration. It shows how you can be strategic even with the lottery element.
Okay, sticking with the job search. Step 7 is about exploring startups. We usually think of the big names, the Googles and Microsofts, for H-1B sponsorship, but the legal team suggests looking elsewhere.
That's a really common assumption, but yeah, the legal team's analysis says don't overlook startups, especially ones in niche fields or rapidly growing areas. They might actually be more willing H-1B sponsors sometimes. They mention firms like Kickoff as examples.
Why would startups be more willing?
Well, often they're hunting for very specific, sometimes hard-to-find skills. They need people who can jump in and make a big impact quickly. If you have that unique talent they desperately need, they might be much more motivated to go through the sponsorship process than a huge company with thousands of applicants.
Makes sense. And the way you approach them might be different, too. The legal team mentions cold emailing HR.
Yeah, it often takes more hustle.
Uh-huh.
You might not just be applying to a listed job. You might need to proactively reach out, maybe pitch your specific skills, show them how you can solve a problem they have, even if they haven't advertised for your exact role. It's about showing initiative.
And this strategy, exploring startups, leads us right into scenario 5 from the legal team. Sanjay, the AI developer from India. His story seems to really capture this proactive approach.
Sanjay's profile, as they described it, is classic. Young guy, 25, from Hyderabad, super passionate about coding, AI. Got his bachelor's in Comp Sci in India, a STEM field, had some local startup experience, but the dream was Silicon Valley AI.
And there was that crucial detail about him. He had no OPT. Can you explain for our listeners what that means? Why is that such a big hurdle?
Yeah, that's super important. OPT is optional practical training. It's temporary work authorization that F1 international students in the U.S. usually get after graduating. For STEM grads from U.S. schools, it could last up to 36 months.
3 years.
Right. It gives you a window to get U.S. work experience and, crucially, find an H-1B sponsor while you're already legally working.
So without OPT, Sanjay didn't have that buffer. He couldn't just start working and prove himself.
Exactly. He had no way to legally work in the U.S. right after his studies unless he already had some other visa status. His entire path depended on getting an H-1B sponsoring job offer and getting picked in the lottery, all before his student status ran out and without having worked in the U.S. first. That's a much tougher position to be in.
So how did he manage it without OPT?
His journey, according to the legal team's research, involved a lot of persistence and smarts. He used platforms like AngelList, which is big in the startup world, and found Kickoff, a San Francisco fintech startup. But finding them was just step one.
Right, he had to impress them.
And he did that by showing his skills, not just telling. The material highlights his GitHub portfolio. Specifically, they mentioned an AI algorithm he built that boosted efficiency by 30%. That's not just words on a resume, that's proof.
But even then, the cold emailing didn't work right away.
No, the legal team noted his first emails got ignored. Which happens. It shows you need to stand out. What finally grabbed Kickoff's HR attention was a demo video of his algorithm, plus the fact he placed third in a big hackathon. He went beyond the resume to really demonstrate his talent and drive.
That's smart. Okay, so he gets the offer, then comes the H-1B process. The material says he even suggested using an attorney for the LCA and H-1B stuff.
Yeah, that shows he understood the process wasn't simple for the employer either. And let's quickly break down the LCA because it's key.
Huh?
LCA is labor condition application. It's something the employer has to file with the Department of Labor before they can even file the H-1B petition with USCIS.
And what does the LCA actually do?
The employer basically makes promises. They promise to pay the H-1B worker the right wage, either the prevailing wage for that job in that location or what they pay similar U.S. workers, whichever is higher. They also promise that hiring the H-1B worker won't hurt the working conditions of U.S. workers and that there's no strike or lockout happening.
There are just too many visas out there, and I don't know which one is right for us. We need to get the right advice.
Communication is everything, and I just need someone who will listen and guide me to the right visa type, and not make promises that they can't deliver.
There are so many documents. I need someone to walk me through each one. I can't afford to make any mistakes.
If I can just find a lawyer who understands my potential, I know America will be an excellent opportunity for me and my family.
Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, and we are your immigration lawyers, and we will be with you every step of the way in your immigration journey.
At the law office of Chris M. Ingram, you get a free consultation so we can understand your needs.
We don't make promises we can't keep. Our success rate speaks for itself.
Join us and access your step-by-step video guides that answer every visa question.
Their platform is amazing. There are videos that instruct you on everything you have to do. It meant we were in control and we could do it in our own time.
They couldn't have been more helpful. They answered every question that I had, and it was easy to see they were the lawyers for me.
I couldn't believe it with my busy schedule. They always had time to talk to me and put me at ease. That's what I like about them.
So go on our website and get your free consultation now, and your new life is about to begin.
Ask me.
We did it! We did it! We did it!
Oh my God, I got my visa! Yes, I did it!
Okay, so it's about protecting workers, both U.S. and H-1B.
Pretty much. And the legal team's account says Kickoff filed Sanjay's LCA in April 2026. They certified the correct wage for an AI dev in San Francisco, over $145,000, and they posted the LCA notice at their office like they're required to.
Got it. LCA done, then the lottery registration.
Yep. With the LCA approved, Kickoff registered Sanjay online with USCIS in March 2026 for the regular H-1B cap. That's the standard first step. Now employers submit basic info online, and USCIS does the random lottery selection from those registrations.
And for Sanjay, despite no OPT,
he got selected. Against the odds, really. His initiative paid off. The legal team's narrative ends with him moving to San Francisco, living his Silicon Valley dream, making his family incredibly proud.
That's fantastic. A great success story, especially starting from that tougher position. So the takeaway from Sanjay and the startup strategy.
Initiative, initiative, initiative. Plus, having demonstrable proof of your skills. Don't just rely on applying for posted jobs. Be proactive. Find companies that fit. Show them what you can do, especially if you're in a niche field or don't have OPT. Startups can be receptive if you make a strong case.
Really powerful. Okay, moving to step 8, acing interviews. Seems basic, but how does the H-1B context change things?
It adds layers.
Yeah.
The legal team stresses it's not just, can you do the job?
Yeah.
It's, why are you the best person for us? You need to clearly connect your skills and experience directly to their specific needs, their problems. Show them how you'll bring value, solve things for them, make yourself indispensable.
And you have to talk about the sponsorship itself at some point during the interviews.
Absolutely. And the timing matters. Probably not the very first screening call, but definitely in later stages when things are getting serious. The legal team says you need to directly ask about their willingness and ability to sponsor an H-1B and handle the LCA. Get it out in the open early enough to make sure you're both aligned. Avoids wasting everyone's time if they aren't able or willing to sponsor. Needs tact, but it's essential.
Makes sense. Okay, step 9 is a big one. Considering cap-exempt alternatives, this is about potentially skipping the lottery chaos altogether.
Exactly. This is a huge potential advantage for certain people. Cap-exempt H-1Bs are simply not counted towards that annual limit, the cap, set by Congress. So employers can file petitions for these jobs anytime during the year. No March registration, no lottery stress.
Who are these magical cap-exempt employers?
Typically, as the legal team outlines, they are specific types of institutions. Universities, nonprofit research organizations linked to universities, or government research bodies like the National Institutes of Health, the NIH.
So if your career path is in academia or research at these places,
You might have a much more direct route. It becomes less about lottery luck and more about your qualifications, your research, and landing a job at one of these specific organizations. Which leads perfectly into Scenario 6. Raj, the biomedical researcher from India. His story is all about this cap-exempt path.
tell us about Raj's background.
The legal team presents him as 32, from Mumbai, really driven by his mother's fight with cancer that fueled his passion for biomedical research. He has a PhD in biochemistry from India, solid STEM credentials, worked in Bangalore, but his goal was top-tier research in the U.S., specifically targeting a postdoc role, maybe at NIH.
And just like Sanjay, Raj also had NOOP2.
Yes, another example, highly qualified, but without that initial U.S. work permit many F1 students get.
Yeah.
So again, he had to secure sponsorship and the visa from abroad, relying entirely on his academic and research strength to attract a U.S. institution.
How did he even start that search, being abroad with no U.S. connections or OPT?
The legal team describes him being very methodical. He used resources like myvisajobs.com, looking up the sponsorship history of places like NIH, trying to find labs that hired foreign researchers. But, the material notes, his big initial hurdle was having zero connections in the U.S. research scene. That's tough, building those bridges from overseas.
So how did he overcome that? He had to be proactive too.
Absolutely. He didn't just apply online and wait. He used his academic work. The legal team highlights this bold move. He emailed a well-known professor at Stanford, but not just a "hi, I need a job" email. He shared his published research, specifically a paper on tumor suppression. In academia, that direct approach, backed by real research, can get attention.
And it worked. He got a referral.
It did. The Stanford professor was impressed, passed his name along, and that led to a lab interview.
Yeah.
It shows how vital that targeted networking is in research fields. The legal team contrasted that with NIH, where his standard applications are getting overlooked. Sometimes that personal connection or referral makes all the difference.
The material also said getting published in a U.S. journal helped him.
Oh, massively. For academics, publishing in respected U.S.-based or widely read journals is huge. It gives you credibility and visibility within the U.S. research community. Makes you less of an unknown quantity. The legal team also mentioned his father's encouragement, pushing him to persist through rejections. That personal support matters too.
So how did the cap-exempt part seal the deal for Raj?
This was key. Because the postdoc job at Stanford was at a university, it qualified as cap-exempt. That meant Stanford could file his H-1B petition whenever they were ready, no waiting for the March lottery.
So he completely bypassed the lottery that Sanjay had to go through.
Completely. The resolution for Raj was different. Stanford offered him the cap-exempt H-1B in April 2026. No registration needed, no lottery win required. They could just prepare and file the petition. The story ends, the legal team notes, with him starting his research at Stanford, dedicating it to his mother, a really meaningful outcome.
So the takeaway from Raj and cap-exempt roles based on the legal team's work?
It's clear. If you have strong academic or research credentials and you're targeting jobs at universities, related nonprofits, or government research centers, the cap-exempt H-1B is a powerful, more direct route. Success there depends heavily on your academic record, publications, and networking within that specific world.
Okay. And the final H-1B strategy, step 10, sounds simple, but is probably crucial. Stay persistent.
Cannot stress this enough. The whole process, especially with the lottery, is tough. It demands resilience. The legal team really emphasizes staying informed through official channels, number one being uscis.gov. That's the source of truth for rules, dates, fees, results. Don't rely on forums or rumors.
And if you don't get picked in the lottery year one, it's not over.
Not necessarily. A long-term view is important. The strategy often involves reapplying in later years if you're still eligible. Think about those STEM OPT folks. With 36 months, they might get 3 cracks at the lottery. Many people get selected on their second or third try. Persistence, while maintaining your legal status, is key.
Okay, wow. We've covered a ton on H-1B strategies, lottery optimization, startups, cap-exempt, interviews, persistence. But like we said up front, what if, after all that, the H-1B doesn't work out? This is where the legal team introduces the E-2 visa as that important alternative.
Exactly. The E2 Treaty Investor Visa.
Yeah.
It's a really significant option, especially for grads who maybe didn't get picked in the H-1B lottery, or maybe the H-1B just isn't the right long-term fit for them anyway.
But you mentioned a huge caveat right away, a major limitation.
Yes, and it's the first thing everyone needs to check. The E2 is only for nationals of countries that have a specific commerce and navigation treaty with the U.S. The legal team's material is clear. This excludes people from many countries sending lots of grads here, like India and China.
So if you're from India or China, generally the E2 isn't an option based on your citizenship alone.
Correct, based on the typical treaties. But for people from treaty countries, the legal team mentioned examples like Canada, Mexico, Australia, the UK. The main requirement revolves around business and investment. You need substantial money that you're putting into starting or buying a U.S. business. Always check the official State Department list for your specific country.
Okay, so assuming you're from a treaty country, what's the formal definition of this E2 visa based on the legal team's research?
They define it as a non-immigrant visa for treaty country nationals. Its purpose is to allow them to come to the U.S. to direct and develop the operations of a business in which they have invested or are actively investing a substantial amount of capital.
Okay, let's break down the key features. Nationality is number one. What about the investment? Substantial capital. What does that actually mean in dollar terms?
Yeah, substantial is tricky. The legal team clarifies it's not one fixed number. It's judged relative to the total cost of starting or buying that specific type of business. But they do give a general range, often somewhere between, say, $100,000 and $500,000, maybe more depending on the business, enough to make the business viable.
And the money has to be at risk. What does that mean practically?
Super important. At risk means the money is genuinely committed to the business and could be lost if the business fails. You can't just park it in a U.S. bank account. It has to be actively spent or irrevocably committed to real business things, buying equipment, inventory, office setup, maybe initial payroll, or the purchase price of an existing business. You have to be exposed to actual entrepreneurial risk.
So you're really building something, not just holding funds.
Right, which ties into the next point.
USCIS is cracking down on visa fraud, and even approved cases are being revoked.
Why was my visa denied? USCIS revoked my approval. At the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, we handle every detail with care. Every form, every fact, every time.
So join us for a free consultation. We do things the right way. Let us take care of you.
It must be a bona fide enterprise. The legal team says this means a real, active business producing goods or services. Like a tech startup? Yes. What doesn't count? Passive stuff, like buying empty land hoping it goes up in value, or just owning stocks if you're not running the company.
What about owning and controlling the business?
The legal team specifies the E2 investor needs control. Usually, that means owning at least 50%, or, if the ownership structure is complex, having operational control through a key management role. You have to be directing the business.
And the business needs to do more than just support the investor. It has to contribute.
Yes, another key point. The business needs the potential to generate significantly more income than just enough for you and your family to live on. It needs to make a real economic contribution, usually shown by its ability to hire U.S. workers. The legal team's material doesn't give a magic number of jobs, but the intent and capacity to create jobs and boost the economy are vital.
How long does the E2 visa last? Is it temporary, like H-1B?
The initial visa is usually granted for up to 2 years. But here's a huge plus. It's renewable indefinitely, as long as the business keeps running successfully and meeting all the E2 requirements. That potential for indefinite renewal makes it really attractive for long-term stability.
How do you actually apply? Is it inside the U.S.?
Typically, no. The standard way the legal team outlines is applying at a U.S. embassy or consulate abroad, usually in your home country. You fill out the online DS-160 form, the standard non-immigrant visa application, and then go for an in-person interview at the consulate.
What kind of paperwork do you need for that interview? Sounds intense.
It is a big package. The legal team confirms you need a really detailed business plan, market analysis, financials, structure, job creation plans. Plus, solid proof of your substantial investment bank records showing the money moved, purchase contracts, leases, invoices, receipts, everything to show where the money went or is committed. And of course, proof you're a citizen of a treaty country.
Wow, that's a lot. What about processing times and costs?
The legal team estimates maybe 2 to 6 months for processing at the consulate, but it varies. The government fee for the DS-160 is pretty low, like $205, $315. But the real costs are obviously the huge investment itself, plus likely significant legal fees to get help with the business setup and that complex visa application.
And where does that investment money usually come from?
The legal team notes it's often personal savings or sometimes family support. They mentioned an example where parents funded a $150,000 startup, showing that family help is definitely a possibility for eligible people.
What about bringing family, spouse, kids?
Yes, another big plus. The legal team confirms spouses and unmarried kids under 21 can get E-2 visas to come with the main investor. And this is huge. The spouse can apply for work authorization once they're here, letting them work for any U.S. employer. Big flexibility boost for the family.
And maybe the biggest draw compared to H-1B, no annual cap.
Absolutely. The legal team flags this. No annual limit on E-2s means no lottery, no waiting lists based on country or demand. If you qualify and get approved, you get the visa. Simple as that, relatively speaking.
Okay, so summing up the E-2.
Yeah.
Why would a grad professional, maybe one hitting H-1B walls, seriously consider it?
Number one reason the legal team points to: no lottery. If you didn't get picked for H-1B or your OPT is ending, E-2 is a direct route if you qualify. It bypasses that H-1B uncertainty, that 24% selection rate they mentioned. Plus, the potential for family funding makes the investment feasible for some. You get control, running your own show. And indefinite renewals offer real long-term stability.
Could it maybe lead to other things later, like a green card?
The legal team suggests it can be a stepping stone. The E-2 itself isn't immigrant, doesn't directly lead to a green card, but it might position you for something like the EB-5 investor green card later, though that's a whole different ballgame with much higher investment levels. Or it just lets you stay and work legally while maybe trying the H-1B lottery again later if you regain eligibility somehow, or exploring other options.
Sounds great, but there have to be downsides, challenges.
Oh, definitely. Big ones. Number one is that treaty country requirement we keep mentioning. If you're from India, China, many other places, it's just off the table based on citizenship. That's huge.
And the investment itself is risky.
Totally. That at-risk capital means you could lose it all if the business fails. It's real entrepreneurial risk. You have to be okay with that.
And putting the application together sounds really complex.
It is. The legal team really stresses this. You need a rock-solid business plan, meticulous documentation of the investment. It's not DIY territory. They strongly recommend getting an experienced E-2 immigration lawyer. Presenting a convincing case to the consular officer is tough.
And maybe the biggest difference from H-1B, philosophically, E-2 is non-immigrant, no built-in green card path.
Crucial distinction. H-1B is dual intent. You can aim for a green card while on H-1B. E-2 requires you to intend to leave the U.S. when your status ends. Yes, you can renew potentially forever if the business thrives, but the E-2 itself doesn't convert to a green card. That's a major long-term planning factor if permanent residency is your ultimate goal.
This whole idea, the pivot from H-1B struggles to E-2, is captured perfectly in Scenario 7, right? Liam, the marketing grad from Australia, whose story the legal team shared.
Liam's situation, as they laid it out, is super relatable. 27, from Sydney, parents had an ad agency. He got a U.S. Master's in Marketing from NYU. Good skills, U.S. degree. But crucially, it was a non-STEM degree.
And non-STEM really limited his H-1B options.
Big time. Non-STEM usually means just 12 months of OPT, not the 36 months STEM grads can get. So you basically have that 1 year after graduation to work, find an H-1B sponsor, and get picked in the lottery before your OPT runs out. Just one shot, usually.
Liam used his 12 months OPT, worked in Chicago, did well.
Yeah, the legal team highlighted his success, ran an SEO campaign that boosted client revenue 25%. Showed he had valuable skills for the U.S. market.
But even with success and a willing sponsor, the non-STEM OPT limit meant H-1B hit a wall for him.
Exactly. His agency registered him for the FY 2025 lottery during his OPT year, but he wasn't selected. The material describes him being devastated, facing his OPT end date, meaning he'd have to leave the U.S. unless he found another option, fast.
And that's when the E-2 became the lifeline.
That was the pivot. With H-1B closed off and OPT ending, his parents offered $150,000 to help him start a business. And this was only possible because Liam is Australian, and Australia has that E-2 treaty with the U.S.
So his nationality, plus the family money, opened a door that wasn't there for Sanjay or Raj due to their citizenship.
Precisely. Liam decided, okay, I'll use my marketing skills, start my own digital marketing consultancy in Chicago. The legal team notes he had doubts about becoming an entrepreneur. It's a big leap. But his parents' support, even his sister helping with branding, pushed him forward.
And he had to turn that into a real E2 case, the investment, the business.
Right. You had to show the substantial investment and bona fide enterprise. The material says he initially invested $120,000 setting up an office, getting software, and crucially, planning to hire U.S. workers. His plan included hiring 3 U.S. employees, hitting that economic contribution requirement.
And the complexity part, did he get help?
Yep, that came up too. The legal team mentioned he worked with an attorney to polish the business plan and get all the E2 documentation right. Again, reinforcing that professional help is often key.
So, plan solid, investment documented. He applied back in Sydney.
Yes, standard E2 process. Applied at the U.S. consulate in Sydney. The legal team even mentioned his heart was pounding during the interview. Totally understandable.
And the outcome for Liam after pivoting from H-1B?
E2 approved July 2025. He launched his consultancy in Chicago, started signing clients. The material notes he was successful, and importantly, able to renew his E2 indefinitely as the business grew. The story ends nicely with his parents visiting his Chicago office, seeing his success.
Liam's story is such a great illustration. H-1B didn't work, but because he was from a treaty country, had funding, and the entrepreneurial spirit, E2 was a successful alternative.
It really shows that the U.S. career path isn't always linear. Sometimes you have to pivot. The E2 can be a fantastic option for the right person in the right circumstances, especially facing H-1B hurdles.
These stories, Priya, with multiple offers. Sanjay tackling startups, Raj on the Cap-Exempt track, Liam pivoting to E2. They really bring the legal team strategies to life. So many different ways to approach this.
They really do. They show real people navigating these complex systems, highlighting the need to understand the rules and find the path that fits your specific situation, skills, and resources.
And the legal team also gave us that great list of resources and tools. Super helpful.
Invaluable stuff for doing your own homework. Let's run through them again quickly. MyVisitJobs.com, great for seeing which companies sponsored H-1Bs before.
Yeah.
The legal team said it had data on like 240,000 LCAs in 2024.
Wow.
H1bgrader.com for salary info, understanding prevailing wages. USSponsorMe.com specifically for finding companies open to sponsorship. H1bdata.info, another huge database of past LCA records, like 4.8 million the legal team mentioned.
That's massive data.
Indeed.com general job site. But the legal team found over 7,000 jobs mentioning H-1B there in October 2025. Then, critically, USCIS.gov, the official government source for all rules and guidelines. The legal team can't stress enough, always check the official source.
Definitely.
LinkedIn, obviously huge for networking, finding recruiters, and AILA.org, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, for finding qualified immigration attorneys, which, as we saw, is often essential.
That's a fantastic toolkit. Having that data and knowing where to find help is huge.
Empowers you to research, plan, and make informed choices.
Okay, so wrapping up this whole series, synthesizing the H-1B deep dive and this E2 alternative, what are the absolute core messages you, the listener, should take away?
Well, based on the legal team's extensive work, the H-1B, if you approach it strategically using OPT, understanding the lottery, nailing the LCA, it's still the main road for many grads. But, and this is key, the E2 is a powerful, viable plan B for treaty country nationals with funding and the right mindset, especially if H-1B hits roadblocks.
Feeling lost in a maze of visa types and paperwork? Don't know where to turn? We've got your back. With clear answers and real help, we'll guide you every step of the way. Let's navigate it together. Your journey starts today.
Hello, you must be Clara. Welcome to the law office of Chris M. Ingram.
Finally, I found a law firm that will help me achieve my American dream.
At this law firm, you are important to us. That's why we will be with you every step of the way. So join us at the office of Chris M. Ingram.
And the stories of Priya, Sanjay, Raj, and Liam aren't just interesting. They're practical illustrations of how these different strategies work in the real world, showing the ups and downs.
Exactly. They show the need for adaptability, persistence, and really thinking creatively about how your unique package fits the available immigration options.
The legal team also left us with a clear action plan, tangible steps you can take right now.
Yeah, they encourage you to, first, boost your network, update LinkedIn, start connecting with recruiters, maybe aim for 15 relevant connections initially. Second, research H-1B sponsors using tools like My Visa Jobs, maybe target 7 companies in your field. Third, actually apply to roles, start with 5 targeted applications based on that research.
And getting professional advice is high on their list.
Absolutely critical. Consult an experienced immigration attorney. Get a personalized assessment for OPT, H-1B, LCA complexities, or E-2 eligibility. Legal advice tailored to you is priceless.
And for those thinking E-2 might fit,
the action item is start exploring concrete business ideas now. If you're from a treaty country and have potential funding, research ventures that align with your skills and meet E-2 rules.
Finally, attend a virtual industry event.
Yep. Keep networking, stay current. Great way to find leads, learn trends, maybe even meet potential employers or partners.
We have covered so much today, and across this series, really leaning on the legal team's detailed research on H-1B strategies and the E-2 alternative. It's clear, navigating U.S. immigration as a grad professional is, well, it's complicated. Lots of layers.
You really need to understand the specific rules for each path and do an honest assessment of which one truly fits your background, your skills, your resources, and where you ultimately want to go.
So as we close out this deep dive, here's that final thought for you, the listener, to ponder. What is your unique combination of skills, background, and resources? And considering everything we've discussed today, which of these diverse pathways, maybe it's Cap-Exempt research, maybe it's an E-2 business you hadn't thought about, which one might be the real key to unlocking your specific U.S. career journey?
It's a very personal question. Mapping out that unique mix is really the crucial first step to finding your path forward.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope you gained a lot from this discussion. Once again, we would like to thank attorney Chris Ingram and his team for researching and preparing this material for our presentation today. They are doing an awesome job. Please leave us a comment if you can, as it really means a lot to all the staff. If you'd like to book a free consultation, please visit www.breakthroughusa.com. See you next time on Let's Talk U.S. Immigration. Bye for now.